honest truth. You need to quickly improve your fantasy team, and the best way to do so is through trading. So let's discuss. We can start at the tight end position, and you want to buy the Dallas tight end Dalton Schultz. You see, his usage has now increased for 3 straight weeks. He played 41 snaps this past week, the most that he's seen basically since before his injury. What this means is he appears to be healthy again, and you can see for yourself. You see, before his injury, Schultz was out there for 96% of the passing plays running a route. He was then out there for 70%. Anything above 70% is great for a tight end. After the injury, drops to 26%. Then it goes up to 52%. This past week, it was at 65%. So he is basically heading into this week going to be back to his normal role. And this is great because he just saw 6 targets and now he's going to get even more usage. 6 targets is the most he's seen since week 1. And let's not forget what this guy did last year, averaging nearly 14 points a game with Dak Prescott and getting all of the cheat code targets, the red zone targets, seeing 14, the deep targets, seeing 7 of those. This is fantastic usage for a tight end. So beautiful people, you want to buy this tight end, but then trade away this next one. And that's the Atlanta Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts, who just produced his best game of the season, the 3rd highest scoring tight end on the week, posting 19 fantasy points on 9 targets, finds the end zone for the 2nd straight game. We love to see this. So you might be saying, what's the issue? Well, let me explain. You see, the usage for Kyle Pitts has been trending up somewhat, right? He only ran 9 routes last week, but he sees 5 targets on 9 routes. That's almost unheard of. Usually if you run 9 routes, you'll see maybe 2 or 3 targets. In this past week, he sees 9 targets because the Falcons threw 28 times in this game, which for most teams and most quarterbacks would maybe be the least times that they throw in a game all year. For the Falcons, it's by far their most. 33% more than any other game was this game, a clear outlier. So earning 9 targets on 28 attempts from your quarterback is fantastic, but the likelihood of this continuing is slim. They'll probably drop back down to like a 20 attempt game. So you should try and sell high on Kyle Pitts, who is still in line for low volume moving forward, but then get this next RB. And that's the Miami Dolphins RB1 in Raheem Mostert. Mostert just scored 7.7 fantasy points. It wasn't the greatest day, but his usage was still elite. Let's check it out. These are the snaps from the Dolphins in week 8, and Mostert still had a commanding lead, playing almost triple the amount of snaps as any other running back in this game, which means he's now played 60% or more of the snaps, this column right here, in 6 straight games, meaning that yes, he is by far the RB1 in an offense that, yeah, is pretty good. And not only did he play 65% of the snaps in this game, he earned 75% of the running back opportunities. That's the targets and the carries, which means he's seeing top 12 RB usage. So you should try and buy Raheem, not now, but right now, and then sell this next wide receiver. You should trade away Brandon Aiyuk as soon as humanly possible. Look, if you're an owner of Aiyuk, I get it. It's tough. He just put up a 20-point day. He found the end zone again, but he only saw 6 targets in this game. And if you're looking at his recent stat logs, he just put up 28 fantasy points, 15, and then this past week, he goes over 20 again. So it's going to be tough for you to want to sell him, but you must. Because in this game where he scored 20 points on just 6 targets, Deebo Samuel was out, and Christian McCaffrey was clearly the focal point of the offense, seeing 9 targets. He's not going to be able to produce Aiyuk as arguably the 4th option in this passing attack now when you factor in George Kittle. So I'd be trading away Brandon Aiyuk at what likely is his peak value right now, try and get something in return, and then hold on to this next wide receiver. And maybe you can even do a 1-for-1 trade here, Brandon Aiyuk for a Juju, because I don't want to be trading Juju. If anything, I would buy high on Juju coming off of the bye week. You see, he's quietly averaging about 7 targets per game this year. He now has 5 games with at least 8 targets, but that's not all. He is the clear wide receiver 1 for Patrick Mahomes, who, yeah, is throwing 38 times per game. This is a top 3 passing offense in the NFL. And not only that, but Mahomes ranks 1st in red zone passing. So this team, when they get in the red zone, they're there a lot, and they want to pass the ball in the red zone, not run the ball. They trust their receivers in Kelsey Moore. And Juju is one of those guys, ranking 7th in the NFL already with 9 red zone targets. So he has those 7 targets per game that we talked about, right? Those give him a safe floor. But then when you factor in the red zone targets, he has not just a floor, but a high ceiling. And we've seen that the past 2 weeks of him finishing with 20+ points. So if you do have Juju, I'd be holding on to him. But if you don't, maybe buy high on him, and you can sell this next RB as well. We've been saying it now for a couple of weeks, and it sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I'd be selling DeAndre Swift, especially since he found the end zone this past week. You still have a chance. You see, Swift returned this week, but he wasn't on the injury report all week. He practiced in full, so there was no limitations. This is his normal role that he's been seeing this year, and he saw it in this game. He ended up coming into this game and playing 55% of the snaps, but he was actually out-touched by backup running back Jamal Williams, 13 touches to 10. And Williams saw the commanding usage in the red zone and at the goal line, which helped Williams have another multi-touchdown game this season. And like I said, this has been common usage. This isn't just a one-off. Even if you date back to last year, it's the same usage. After this game, DeAndre Swift now goes from a 40% opportunity share to a 42% opportunity share. So he's not even seeing half of the touches in this backfield when he's healthy. And heading into this week, he led the entire NFL on a somewhat smaller sample with 8.8 yards per touch. That's already dropping, and there's no way it sustains this high because his career average is just 5.2 yards per touch. And the NFL leader in 2021 was Rashad Penny, who averaged 6.4 yards per touch. So this is going to come down to earth, and when it does, people are going to start to realize the evident disadvantage in his his low volume, which all comes down to the fact that you should be selling DeAndre Swift right now, especially as the offense gets even worse here, and then sell this next RB. And that would be Deonta Foreman, who was a fantastic waiver wire ad, I'm sure, for a lot of people, especially later in the week once Chuba Hubbard got ruled out. And what does he do? He went nuclear. This man, Foreman, found the end zone 3 times. He had a hat trick, just like AJ Brown and Alvin Kamara. Everybody was doing it. Goes over 100 yards, and he ends up doing it on 26 touches, 30 plus fantasy points. So you might be saying, well, Sal, what's the issue here? He just had a great game. Why not hold on to this guy? Well, you can if you need like an RB2 and there's not many other options in your league, but let's discuss why you might want to trade him. And it all starts with Chuba Hubbard being ruled out last week and now trending to play this week. And now if we're assuming that Hubbard plays in week 7 when both of them were active with no Christian McCaffrey, Hubbard actually played 61% of the snaps and 85% of the passing down snaps. Foreman was the clear backup. And it's likely Foreman maybe earned some more touches and usage after that big game. Maybe he sees 60% of the carries, but Hubbard is going to see most of the passing down work, and the Panthers are underdogs in their final 9 games. Meaning that Hubbard's going to be out there a lot more in terms of passing downs and snaps. Foreman comes off the field. Sell him off of this massive game immediately. And hey, if you're enjoying this content, be sure to subscribe for more. And then buy low on the Jets RB1. Yes, RB1 in Michael Carter. You see, he's coming off of a poor game where he scored just 10 fantasy points. Not the worst performance. Still had 4 catches, 14 overall opportunities with another 7 target game here. All this is great to see, but yes, I believe he's the RB1, and here's why. Quite simply, the Jets have more invested in Carter. He's an early 4th round pick when James Robinson, they gave up a 6th round pick that can maybe become a 5th round pick for him. And now this past week, James Robinson debuted. He only played 14 snaps. Carter led the way playing 33 snaps. I assume James Robinson sees more snaps moving forward, and the goal here would be that it takes away from Ty Johnson and not Michael Carter. That's what I would expect. And at the end of the day, Michael Carter has just been, so far in this point in his career, a better running back than James Robinson. In his rookie year, his only full season, Carter ranked 13th in yards per touch, the 13th most productive running back when he touched the ball. Meanwhile, this season so far, after his Achilles injury, which I think is important to actually look at that and not before the Achilles, after the Achilles injury, James Robinson is 45th in yards per touch. Look, I don't think that James Robinson is a bad running back by any means, but I think that they needed to pick up a backup running back here that they felt confident in behind Michael Carter. But I'm sure a lot of people in your league still assume that James Robinson is going to be the starter here because he had that great rookie year 2 years ago. But Carter, in my opinion, is the guy to have. Go buy him low. You could also buy low on Devonta Smith because AJ Brown just erupted this past week for 3 touchdowns, 40 fantasy points, but quietly, Devonta Smith in that game also had 8 targets, which bumped up Devonta Smith now to seeing 7.3 targets per game this season, and he's actually the 3rd best wide receiver in the NFL at getting separation versus man coverage. He has the speed. He's playing bigger with more muscle this year. He's a solid wide receiver. And when you boil this all down, he's actually a top 20 wide receiver on the season this year, very quietly. People are not expecting that. They think about Dallas Goedert. They think about Jalen Hurts. They think about AJ Brown. Go get Devonta Smith. Buy him low now. And then sell this next veteran wide receiver this week. This is your final week to sell him. And that would be Allen Robinson. And there's a couple reasons why his value is a little bit higher right now, probably than it should be. The first reason is that Cooper Kupp ended up injuring his ankle late in the game. He's considered day-to-day. Now, he's expected to play this week, but a lot of players say they're expected to play, and then the ankle injury ends up hurting them Saturday or throughout the week in practice. So just track this. This might give you more value if Cooper Kupp starts missing practices. So you can include in your sales message, hey, I mean, Cooper Kupp might be out. Robinson might be the wide receiver 1. There's a lot of teams on bye this week. You can use him. And then you can also say he's trending up in the right direction anyways. Now in back-to-back games, he has 10 plus fantasy points. He's seen 7 and 6 targets. This is good usage for the guy, right? This is how you start to sell this a little bit, of course. And not only that, but he's also seen red zone work the last couple weeks. That's how you sell this. But Van Jefferson's going to see more usage. Cooper Kupp's injury isn't that significant. So you need to get rid of this guy now before he becomes the wide receiver 3 here. And now we must talk about Tony Pollard because it's an interesting situation this week. Tony Pollard is as legit as it gets. Heading into this week, he ranked 4th in yards per touch, running back efficiency and production. Now, after this past week, he ranks number 1 in the NFL in yards per touch. He is the most productive running back this year when he touches the ball. And this is the absolute crazy part. He has seen the 4th most 8-man boxes, meaning that there's an extra defender in the box, which means you're set up to fail, and he's still the number 1 running back in the entire league in productivity. And he sees just 15 touches in this game, nearly has 150 yards, 3 touchdown game. Yet again, another guy seeing the 3 touchdown club. The hat trick this week goes for 30 plus points. So why is he in a trade video? Well, Jerry Jones is the reason why. Directly after the game, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said that running back Tony Pollard's impressive performance in the start versus the Bears won't impact. It will not impact Zeke's status. We are going to go as Zeke goes. And now you might be saying there's no way that they can't put Zeke as a starter. No, well, Jerry Jones, the owner, has a lot of obviously pull in this organization and pride. And do not discount that pride. There's a lot of money invested in Ezekiel Elliott, and Jerry Jones doesn't want to look stupid. So it hurts to say this, but it's probably the best time to sell high on Tony Pollard before he goes back to seeing just 10 to 12 touches as soon as this week. Thanks, Jerry. And it's also a good idea to just sell every member that you possibly can of this Washington Commanders backfield. Now, there's 3 running backs involved, and the ones that probably have some trade value are Antonio Gibson and or Brian Robinson. You see, this backfield is just an absolute mess. 3 running backs ended up seeing at least 25% of the snaps, and none of them top 36%. That leader was Antonio Gibson. And Gibson did end up putting 20 plus points up. He had 7 receptions in this game. He by far is probably the best receiving back, even ahead of JD McKissic at this point in this backfield. But there's some clear issues here. He's only going to play 30 to 40% of the snaps each week, it seems. And if they end up having a lead in any of these games, Brian Robinson will likely see more work. So it's best that you can just get rid of these guys, unlikely in a 1-for-1 deal, but throw them in a package deal to sweeten the pot, because they're not going to be that valuable for you moving forward. Maybe there's a chance Antonio Gibson gets traded in the real life NFL before the Tuesday deadline as of this recording, but it seems unlikely. So you don't want to acquire that backfield, but you do want to acquire the fantasy cheat sheet, which is my 5-step system to beating your friends and winning your fantasy league, becoming a champion. You'll get the weekly tools emailed and updated every single day. And here's the big thing. It's a one-time payment of $10. If you don't win your fantasy league, I'll refund that $10. This is 100% risk-free. There's absolutely no catch. Thousands of other people are using the fantasy cheat sheet to dominate their leagues right now, so click the link in the description to get access. And you also want to get access to Khalil Herbert as soon as you can on your fantasy team. You see, in the past 2 weeks, the Bears are using a quote-unquote hot hand approach, and since doing that, Khalil Herbert ranks 12th in fantasy points per game. Meanwhile, he's doing this while playing less than 50% of the snaps. So let's just imagine he starts to see more snaps. He's been ultra productive. Now, just how productive? He is literally the 3rd most productive running back when he touches the ball this season, 6.5 yards per touch. So think about how much you value Tony Pollard. Well, Pollard's probably going to be a backup again once Zeke returns. Khalil Herbert is pushing towards being the starter here, and he's just as effective on the ground. Go get this guy as soon as you can, because there's no way your league mates view him as potentially a top 10 running back the rest of the year. So at the beginning, I said you need to improve your fantasy team quickly if you want to win your league, right? And trading is the #1 way to do that. But the other way to do that is on the waiver wire. And there's 13 players you should be checking and seeing if they're still on your waiver wire. Not now, but right now. And this video will help you identify just who those guys are. And hey, if you're one of the 60% of people not subscribed to this channel, make sure that you hit the subscribe button.